If you do any of the things I'm going to outline in this video, you are guaranteeing that your wife will never respect you. Be sure to stay into the last one because it's the worst by far, and missing this point will ensure that you're going to be in pain for the entirety of your marriage. Hi, if you're new here, my name is John DeBach, and I work with men on getting the kind of relationship they actually want and not one they have to just settle for. I'm not selling anything in this video, by the way. This is just free information to try to help and give back to the community. And if you don't know anything about me, I've built 1 million followers on my social media from zero in the last year. I've been a couples counselor and relationship coach for almost a decade and a half. I've a published author. I've been on national TV a bunch of times, husband of 15 years, and father of 4 great kids. And I live what I teach. Unlike other guys online who talk about having great relationships and aren't even married. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone specifically, but if you know, then you know. The first point is all about living without a spine. When a man lives without a spine, he's essentially invisible to his wife. Respect requires definition, and definition requires standing upright both physically and morally. A spine isn't just the bones running down your back, it's your willingness to say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and this is where I stand. The tragedy is that so many men avoid conflict at all costs. They think peace equals happiness. So they fold every time there's pressure. They never challenge. They never push back. They never reveal their own truth. They become the nice guy. Agreeable, compliant, always accommodating. And while that sounds sweet on paper, in reality, it breeds contempt. Your wife doesn't want a roommate who just goes along. She wants a partner who will stand firm in his beliefs. Without a spine, you disappear into the background. Now, she may love you for your loyalty, she may appreciate your work ethic, but deep down, deep inside, she cannot respect a man who refuses to declare himself. And without respect, attraction and intimacy erode. This is how marriages become sexless, joyless, and brittle. Having a spine doesn't mean being a bully. It doesn't mean dominating or shouting or controlling. It means being clear, consistent, and anchored. A spine is the line you refuse to cross, the beliefs you're willing to risk discomfort for, the ground you refuse to abandon no matter how loud things get at home. So here's the blunt truth. If you can't figure out who you are and what you believe in, she has nothing solid to hold on to in you. And no matter how much you try to make her happy, you're just going to become another piece of furniture in her house. That's the reality. By the way, if you're finding this helpful so far, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It tells me to keep making more of these videos, and more importantly, it helps men who need this message find it because the algorithm just keeps boosting it when it sees that kind of action. Now that brings us to our next point, which is the need for validation. One of the most surefire ways to annihilate respect in your marriage is to constantly beg for validation. Now look, validation should be a gift, not a demand. When you make every decision contingent on her approval, you're essentially announcing that you can't move without her blessing. That doesn't make you romantic, it makes you dependent. Think about that for a second. Now, here's the paradox. The more you chase her validation, the less she gives it. Why? Because respect can't be compelled. Think about it like attraction. If someone is constantly begging for your attention, do you feel drawn to them or do you feel suffocated? The same exact principle applies here. Wives respect men who don't need to be patted on the head after every choice. They respect men who can make a call, stand behind it, and weather the outcome, win or lose. But if every time you do something, you look back at her like a little boy saying, was that okay? Did I do good? Do you still love me? You're not showing strength. You're showing weakness. And weakness kills respect faster than almost anything else. Now, this doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean ignoring her input. A marriage is a partnership and her voice matters, but there's a massive difference between considering her input and needing her permission just to exist. If you make her validation the oxygen you breathe, you will suffocate your marriage, period. The solution is to validate yourself first. Make decisions rooted in your own values and judgment, not in her temporary reactions. And when you do that, you'll notice something strange. The less you seem to need her validation, the more she freely offers it. The third point is living in fear. Fear is one of the most corrosive forces in a marriage. When you let fear dictate your choices, you're essentially saying, I am willing to betray myself to avoid discomfort. And betrayal of self is the beginning of her betrayal of you. Fear of her anger, fear of losing her, fear of being alone. These are the hidden drivers behind so many weak decisions men make. They avoid the hard conversations. They withhold the truth. They back down from conflicts where they should stand tall. And every time they do, they think they're preserving peace. But really, what they're doing is carving out a piece of their manhood and handing it away. A man ruled by fear cannot command respect. Respect flows to courage, and courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in spite of it. A wife doesn't need a husband who never feels fear. She needs one who looks fear in the eye and says, "You will not own me." Think about it this way. When you hide behind fear, your wife knows. She may not call it out directly, but she feels it. She notices when you tiptoe around her moods, when you avoid decisions that might upset her, when you silence yourself because you don't want to rock the boat. And each time you do, her respect for you shrinks. Ironically, courage is attractive even when it fails. If you take a stand and it blows up, she may be angry in the moment, but deep down, she knows you had the guts to put yourself on the line. And that earns respect, massive respect. The antidote to fear is clarity. Know what you stand for, commit to it, and act with resolve. If you can do that, even imperfectly, you'll win more respect than you'll ever get by trying to simply avoid the conflict. Here's point number 4, sacrificing your mission. Nothing destroys respect faster than a man who abandons his mission for the sake of temporary harmony. Your mission, your work, your purpose, your calling is the backbone of your life. When you drop it to appease your wife, you think you're showing devotion, but what you're really doing is showing weakness. Here's the problem. Women test men, consciously or not. They just do. They test to see if your convictions are real or just lip service. And when she says something like, you're working too much on your dream, spend more time here, and you immediately fold, she gets the answer loud and clear. Your mission isn't real to you. It's negotiable. And if it's negotiable to you, it will never inspire respect in her. Now, let's be clear. Your mission should not come at the expense of your marriage or your family. Balance matters. But balance doesn't mean abandonment. Balance means structuring your time and energy so that your purpose thrives alongside your marriage. When you sacrifice your mission completely, you rob her of one of the most attractive things about you, direction. A man with direction pulls his wife into a greater vision. A man without it forces her to become the vision. And that is crushing. No woman wants to be the sole purpose of her husband's life. It sounds flattering, but it's suffocating. It just suffocates her. Stay loyal to your mission, even if it causes tension, even if she doesn't always understand it. Because the truth is, if you give it up for her, she'll lose respect for you. And if you keep it alive, even when it's hard, she'll respect you more deeply, even if she never says it out loud. Now, the 5th point I want to talk to you about is all about performative masculinity without substance. Now, this one's tricky because a lot of men think it's the opposite of weakness. They bulk up, they make money, they act tough, and they flash bravado. But underneath, there's nothing solid. It's performative masculinity, all costume and no core. Now, here's the reality. Women are sharper than you think. They can spot the difference between real strength and a performance. A guy who talks tough but crumbles under pressure, she sees it. A guy who flexes his money but can't hold a boundary in his own home, she feels it. A guy who seduces but avoids emotional truth, she knows. Performative masculinity is essentially cosplay. And just like cosplay, it could be fun, but it's not the real thing. And respect isn't given to costumes. Respect is given to men who have integrity, whose words, actions, and beliefs align consistently. Props like whiskey, cars, muscles, or dominance games may impress strangers, but they don't fool your wife for long. She's behind the curtain. She sees the truth of who you are when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're raw. And if what she sees is hollow, no amount of props will ever keep her respect alive. I promise you that. So here's the blunt takeaway: stop relying on signals of masculinity. Build substance instead. Build a spine, build character, build clarity, build consistency, and then, and only then, the external stuff adds weight. Without the core, though, it's just decoration. It doesn't mean much. And the sixth and final point is when you avoid hard truths, this is the biggest one, okay? And it's the most painful. If you avoid hard truths in your marriage, you are signing a contract with permanent disrespect from your wife. Most men don't lie outright, but they lie by omission. They withhold what they really think. They stay silent when they should speak. They sugarcoat, they minimize, or pretend everything's fine, all to keep the peace. But peace bought at the price of truth is counterfeit. It may last a day, a week, or a year, but eventually it's going to explode. It'll detonate. Your wife can't respect a man who refuses to speak hard truths. She may like him, she may use him, she might even depend on him, but she will not respect him. Because deep down she knows if he can't say the difficult thing to her, he won't say it to the world. And a man who hides his truth, especially to everyone else, he's not trustworthy. This doesn't mean being cruel. It doesn't mean dumping every critical thought onto her lap, but it does mean saying the thing that matters, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. It means looking her in the eye and telling her the truth about your feelings, your needs, your boundaries, your disappointments, your dreams. All of them matter. When you avoid hard truths, you think you're protecting the relationship, but you're not. What you're actually doing is starving it. Because intimacy requires honesty, and without honesty, there simply is no respect. So here's the harsh reality. If you want your wife's respect, you must be willing to risk her anger. You must be willing to say the words that might create conflict today, knowing they're the only path to trust tomorrow. If you can't do that, you're going to live in a marriage where you're tolerated, but never truly, truly respected. Like I said at the beginning of this talk, I'm not selling anything, but if you do want to work with me, I have a very private and exclusive men's group where we dive into your issues one-on-one. If you're interested, the info is in the description below. Thanks for watching.